Thank you very much, Rod. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the formal launch of Cardiff 75. I'll quit while I'm ahead. I just want to give you a little bit of information and say a few thank yous. Cardiff Writer Circle was born on the 4th of May the 4th, Star Wars Day, 1947, and contrary to popular belief, I was not at the inaugural meeting. A few other literary things occurred during that year. Tennessee Williams' Streetcar Named Desire was published, All My Sons by Arthur Miller, and Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. All of those. But I have to say, from where I'm standing, Cardiff Writer Circle going without missing a beat for 75 years. So we managed to pull together a number of funds. Thanks very much to Martin, who did an extraordinary job raising funds, and we had a year of celebration. Many events, you can look them up on our website, and this is the culmination. Just want to say that we've been supported throughout this year by the Art Council for Wales, Cardiff Library Service, Literature Wales, Postcode Community Trust, and particular thanks to Viridern Prosiect Gorydd Community Fund and Parthian Books for their generous support with this publication. Also to Rowan Maddock and all at Waterstones for their hospitality, and also to Sarah Hayes, our own wonderful, editor to be honest, because she did almost all the editing for this book. And having done a much smaller one myself, I know how hard that is, but Sarah has managed, well, with great aplomb. So, what's going to happen now? Sarah is going to lead a Q&A and a discussion panel with selected readings from this magnificent tome, and then by about 8 there'll be a chance for mingling and buying books, talking, and even getting some of the authors in here to sign their works if you wish. I just want to finally say that we will be asking a few people from the floor to read their pieces, as well as some readings from the panel. So, I'd like to hand over to Sarah now.
Thanks, Paul, and can I say the editing was very light touch. It was a joy to do. So just a very brief word from me. This book has writing from 5 writing groups in and around Cardiff, which was a feat in itself, thanks to Martin again. It is lovely to encourage other writers, writers from other groups. There are 75 pieces, by chance, in the piece. How did that happen? And 37 writers are represented, so thanks to all the writers that contributed something so beautiful. I actually love every single piece, so thank you. So enough from me. I'm going to ask to start off Kat Wheeler to read her piece, or an extract from her piece. I'll tell you now, I've asked everybody to stick within 5 minutes. So you can all put your hand up if you're bored after 5 minutes, not until then, but I don't think you will be. And then when Kat's finished, we'll have a quick discussion, then we'll move on to other panel members to do reading. Okay, over to you, Kat.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. So this is The Bone Layers, a quite short story. It's hot. There's a stickiness to the air, half sweet, half threat, and the boys have come to join their fathers in the boneyard. It is the time of year that the boys age up from play fighting and class scuffles of their schools and take on a trade. There are many new apprentices who are donning their work coats and trowels for the first time. It is easy to forget that construction is a job. It is mindless. It repeats layer upon layer. The mortar is mixed with sand and water, spooned onto the edge of a trowel, and the mixture pattered into an even paste, upon which the long bones will be placed. Many of the men stay until retirement. The grind of the day is something they can teach their hands. the calyces equalling trophies of their great and worthy work. Everard's son is not used to the heat of the day, and hides from the sky underneath his father's coat. Like the other boys, it is his first day. His clothes are ill-fitting, the cuffs hang past his fingertips, and his boots slide loosely around his feet. He and his father have the job of hauling the bones from the stocks and placing them on top of the mortar. Everard's son will lay the corners, his father the connecting walls. A corner piece is the most important of the house, says his father. For those, each part must be angled just so. It is the biggest job of them all. The boy is given a piece to feel, to see how it weighs in his hands. It's light, easy enough to balance on the crux of a finger, but weighty enough to shatter. The sweat on his palms is enough to slick the white until it shines against his skin. With it is a sensation. He feels it spinning around his head and ears. There's sickness in there, a sweet, heady dancing of his thoughts. He hands it back to his father, the surface leaving a white coating on his palms. The boy looks down at his arm, grabs around the flesh and to the harder tissue underneath. It is a straight line. How is it curvy? His father doesn't answer. I can bend sticks easy, the boy offers. These are so powdery and weird. If you put it on right the first time, you won't have to adjust it. It dries fast. Look, I'll show you. The man scoops a trowel into the mortar and spreads a thick layer onto the bone. Like this. He places it down and the wall grows an inch higher. And then you do it again. Again and again until you have a house. When the day is over, Everard's son walks along the docks. The sun hangs sharp orange fingers on the horizon. Its rays spread across the water. It is still hot outside. The scorching heat of a spring day burns the air. It is easier to breathe than earlier, but the warmth still plants an ache in his throat. He has never been this way before. It is a path reserved for only a few. It is usually empty, the ships along the water often deserted. Now he is learning a trade. He can walk where he is allowed. When the boy had peered in before, he had seen farmers brandishing new tools and heavy bags behind them. He walks for a while, counting ripples in the water when the path stops. There is a left turn and the right, leading to a haymarket and to the sea. The boy turns around, doubles back down the dockside path. He's gone too far to turn off, so he follows the path beside the water's edge. There's a ferry boat cruising past a small distance away. The boy squints at it. The captain is missing from the cab, but there is a thin trail of steam from the funnel atop it. He stops, pausing until the boat passes the gleam of the sun, and looks again. The boat is large, the same brown as the waveless water. There's a square platform at the back, populated by a group of silent figures. Some are lying on their sides, knees splayed out, folded into wordless L shapes. The others are bent like they are caught in a bow. A few are walking from side to side, fingertips grazing and skimming the floor. They scutter wordlessly, unconscious of Everard's son, a few mad eyes darting to spots on the water. He watches the boat cruise out of sight. The sun is nearly down, and the water a drastic orange. When he walks here again, he'll watch out for the boat and the bent double people. Everard's son walks the path home and drinks the soup his mother gives him.
Thank you, Pat. So read on if you want to know what happens next. It's quite a read. So can I just introduce the panel members now before we go on any further? So we've got Christina Thatcher from Both Writers, Kat Wheeler, who is one of our members but also from Cardiff University Creative Writing Society. We've got Jen Wilkinson on my left, who is one of our members as well, but also from Tuesday Night Writes. And then over on the end, Martin Buckridge, who's a member of our group. So over to you. Have you got any questions for the panel?
I just wondered why you decided not to give Everard's son a name.
I think as I was writing it, it made a lot of sense for the style particularly that I wanted him to be unnamed, because you have the story of these boys in the yard, and it's not important whether they have names. It's the experience and the sort of heavy, sort of, as the story goes on, you get this heavy creeping sense of doubt. Everard's son is defined by his father, what his father does, what his father has brought him to do. So it's important that you know that he's his son, but it's less important that you know who he is. Thank you.
Thanks, Kat. Anyone else got a question? Yeah.
Given we're celebrating 75 years of a writing group, it's possibly a slightly excessively broad question, but I'd love to hear from the panel what you feel the value has been for you of being part of a writers group, whether it's Roth Writers, Tuesday Night Writes, CWC.
Well, I guess quite simply for me, for Roth Writers, I started Roth Writers in 2011. I'm obviously not from Cardiff, as you can probably tell. So Roth Writers, being part of that group and being the facilitator of that group, meant that I could build like a kind of chosen family, right? That I could meet with people who loved writing, loved reading, loved talking about poetry, that I had people to go to the pub with and discuss literature with, that I had people to celebrate Christmas with, you know, talking about our favorite books and exchanging Secret Santas. Every year we write each other something for Christmas. So I think having the opportunity to find community through a writers group has been an incredibly special and like transformative experience. So yeah, what about you, Kat?
So I'm a bit newer to the writing scene in Cardiff because I came here for university, but I think going to Cardiff Writers Circle has given me, and even Creative Writing Society, is a sort of, you go there same time every week, you sit down and there's a circle of people who know you, who know your work, and I think as a writer everyone sort of knows the feeling of being around other writers, and it's being understood where, you know, I might make friends in university who don't quite get what I do. Not like it's a sort of MI6 secret, but it's sitting around a table having tea and biscuits and somebody knowing what you do, and you can have a chat afterwards. I think it's been really lovely.
Hiya. I think it's much the same as Kat and Christina said. I think it's kind of a case of find your tribe, because a similar thing, I was sort of going along, sort of my own writing and sort of keeping it to myself a bit because I didn't know anybody else who was into that. And then I've been in Tuesday Night Writes for quite a lot longer than I've been in Cardiff Writers Circle. And I remember the first time I went and I sort of said, oh yeah, I'm new, and the person nearly was sort of the leader back then, and he sort of had a chat and sort of asked a few questions. It sort of felt like my face fit, and at last I sort of met people that were doing things like Jay and Jonah have won awards, and Neil was doing well at the time, and people have done things and sort of gone places a bit with it, and it's quite inspiring. And I don't think without being in both of the groups I would have got as far as finishing novels and what have you. So I think it's really important to be in those groups and have people doing those things as well. I think for me that's the only way to sort of go forward with it.
For me, I'd say all the reasons just mentioned, but more specifically, I think I'm quite a lazy writer, not unlike other writers, I'd imagine, and I like the discipline of attending meetings and having to present something to meetings. It keeps me on my toes, and so without this I probably wouldn't have written anything much at all.
Thank you. I'm going to ask Jen to do a reading now from her piece. It's a short story.
Very short. Okay, this is part of a short story called Terrible Weather for June. June. Terrible weather for June, he said, shuffling his feet and glancing at the girl, then back at his feet. June who? She asked. June, the month June, he replied. Oh yes, of course, how silly of me. They stood in the drizzle for a moment, then she said, "My mother's roses have been completely drenched." "How awful," he replied, but he didn't know much about roses, so he said nothing else. The sky drizzled down on them and the cars splashed past. The bus came and they both got on and went to work. July. "Dreadful business about the rainforest," she said, hoping he'd heard about the rainforests. "The rainforests? Oh yes, dreadful. Terrible state of affairs," he said, tucking his book about roses under his arm. "Most disturbing. Would you like an extra strong mint?" "Thank you." They sucked their extra strong mints and a breeze blew across them. The bus came and they both got on and went to work. August. "Are you going on holiday soon?" he asked. "Yes, I'm going to Blackpool in a week for a fortnight," she smiled. "And you?" "I'm going to Skegness in a fortnight for a week." "How nice." They both laughed. "I hope the weather's good for you. Skegness could be so bracing." "Yes, that's what the brochure said." They both laughed again. The sun shone down of them and the cars whizzed past. The bus came and they both got on and went to work. September. "Did you have a nice holiday?" she inquired. "Very nice, thank you. Very relaxing." "And you?" "Oh, lovely, thank you. Lovely weather." The weather makes all the difference, I always think. Oh, I think so too. All the difference. They both watched the clouds as the clouds floated past. Then the bus came and they both got on and went to work.
There we are, read more. You can guess where it's going, at least in the months anyway. Any questions for Jen or for the panel? Yeah, Ed?
Is that autobiographical?
No.
I've got a question. Jen, I was just wondering where you got the idea of reflecting the changing relationships with the seasons, or making that link.
Do you know what? Without giving too much away, I'm not sure that the relationship really changes all that much. It's kind of two people that can never quite make a connection, even though they've got a year every day at the bus stop and that thing, and they're just sort of watching their lives drift past, really, until the end.
Okay, shall we move on to Martin? You ready to read your...
Thank you. This is a very light piece of flash fiction loosely inspired by a true story called I Am. "I'm sorry, sir, I can't." "What? Why not? There's money there." "Yes, there's money, all right. Quite a lot, in fact. But the account's frozen. Steve Smith is dead." "What? What do you mean he's dead? I'm sitting here, talking to you." "I see you, sir, and we are having a conversation. But you are not the Steve Smith of 19 the Circus. You can't be. The system says he died 2 months ago. His estate is in probate, and his account frozen. Could you possibly be another Steve Smith? It's not exactly an unusual name." "This is rubbish. Look at my driver's license. I am the Steve Smith. I live at that address. You've known me for 20 years. We used to play squash together. There's got to be a mistake." "No, sir. The system never makes mistakes. Look, this is a copy of the grant of probate and a letter from the executors. If you were the Steve Smith, I'd be talking to a dead man. And you, sir, are clearly alive." "Just a minute. Without that." "Yes, that is rather strange, sir. But the absence of a death certificate does not in itself prove that a person has not died. I'm sure Alfred the Great didn't have a death certificate." "What? What's Alfred the Great got to do with it?" "He's dead, sir. No doubt about it. This is a nightmare. Last week my employer stopped my salary, despite me being in the office at the time. The week before I had to prevent someone from fixing for sale signs outside my house. And now I can't even withdraw my money from my own bank account. How can I prove to you that I'm Steve Smith? owner of that bank account and all the money you're holding on to, I think you'll have to prove to the system that you didn't die. Okay, what's the procedure for doing that? There isn't one. Wait, let me guess. Because the system never makes mistakes. That's correct, sir. Right, that does it. Stick 'em up. Be careful with that gun, sir. You'll never get away with this. You're on CCTV. Your fingerprints everywhere. And I make a very good witness. Ah, that's where you're wrong. I can do anything I like. The police can't arrest a dead man, and he can't be prosecuted. Now, open the safe.
There we have it. Any questions for Martin? Or for the panel?
Hello. Hello.
Hello, hello.
Yeah. Could I ask Martin? He referred in the beginning that it was loosely based on a true story. Is that autobiographical? in any sense at all?
Fortunately not. It's based on an article I read in a newspaper a couple of years ago about a woman in France who was maliciously declared dead by one of her disgruntled tenants, and a story went around, and somehow officialdom got wind of this, and one by one the different elements of officialdom closed down this poor woman, and bureaucracy being what it is in France, even though people later understood that she was alive, there was no one, apparently, with the authority to actually declare her undead. So as far as I know, she's still wandering around, slightly in the other world, but in this one too.
Yes.
Martin, as an ex-civil servant, who do you have sympathy for in this book?
I have a great deal of sympathy for Steve Smith, but having worked in that world, I know how suffocating that bureaucracy can be.
Okay, any other questions? You can see that the creative process is very varied, and strange things catch our attention sometimes and turn into quite remarkable pieces. So, I'm going to ask Leslie to come forward now, please.
I don't need that. Can you hear me?
No.
No. So,
Leslie,
yes.
before you do.
Okay. So, hello everybody. I've got a couple of pieces in this anthology, I'm very proud to say. And the first one I'm going to read to you is called Martinis. Dry martinis are not a vice, they're essential. Like marrying one of those conditions we consider biologically necessary for life. A whiff of extra dry. Martini, never Dolan. 4 parts gin, a deftly cut sliver of lemon zest, its oil spritzed like petrol floating on puddles.
Looks like that.
And the second quick piece probably reveals a bit more about my home life than I wanted to, but never mind. It's called Kitchen Drinks Slinger.
That's you, that is.
He knows the etymology of grenadine. The Japanese Jack Rose unfolds like Guerlain perfume or a transformer. Others, brown, sluggish, Thump the tongue in absinthe whiskyness. You need 2 hands for the glass. Spreadsheets map the stocks of tinctures in the linen-fold oak cupboard that once held a television. He knows the etymology of falernum. He is the real maraschino.
Showed you that's real concrete poetry. That the martini one looks like a martini glass, which is so clever. Yeah. So I mean, you're quite quiet, but have you got any? So what we've done in our celebration year is you've had workshops on all sorts of how to do's and how not to do's. Presentation, writing scripts, writing short stories. I don't know, Paul, if you want to talk a little bit about what else you've done. You've had a walking tour taking in the highlights of the city, and you've done this workshop, this book. Do you want to say, what is there anything else in the pipeline? There is, isn't there?
This is, as I mentioned, the formal launch here, but we'll hopefully be doing some open mics and maybe arranged readings, but we have yet to, should we say, formalise that, because we've been focused on this. we've, as Sarah said, had the first literary walking tour of Cardiff, which included some other groups as well, and the A48 Theatre Company. That was very good in the centre. That was just a couple of weeks ago. And we had a large gathering in what was Jury's Hotel. I can't remember what it's changed the name to now. Leonardo's, thank you. Yes, that was a writers' gathering which Martin organised, and we had a number of professionals and published authors holding Q&As and giving talks, and there were 4 cakes. That was an excellent event. But we're hoping we'll be doing more events, just to keep it rolling on a bit longer, because we've been asked to do so by a number of people, and it's just a case of being able to organise it and fit it in. And then if we are able to, we'd like to run more tutorials, because we've had a lot of queries about that. But it's been really wonderful to pull together all the different groups, because after COVID hit, a lot of the groups went downhill and some ceased to function altogether. But as you've said, with the help of Parthian and a number of other organisations, we've been able to come through this, and I hope we stay here, and I'd like to see you all here for the 150th anniversary.
Try my best.
You youngster.
So yes, we're starting to wind down the full formal year of our celebration, even though we're almost past it already. But we've got another 2 or 3 months worth of activities, but we won't stop there, because we have done so much and we've enjoyed it. It's been a great journey. Can I call Jeff forward now, please, to do a reading?
You certainly can. I'll tell you. Thank you, Paul. You won't need air pops for this one. Right, I wrote this for my 3-year-old granddaughter. She was 3 then, she's 4 now. Called When the Daisies Go to Sleep. I will be there for you forever. Whenever you need me, my darling girl, you are the loveliest little person. I feel so privileged to be your granddad, and so honoured that you hug me so tightly as you slip into slumber's embrace at that time of the evening when the daisies go to sleep. You run like the wind through the meadow of my garden, so happy, so free, laughing all the time. Such a joy to be with you, my darling girl. My heart is yours, you melted with your smile. Time when your busy day is over, tiredness and weariness have come, exactly at that time of the evening when the daisies go to sleep.
Thank you. Can I ask Sharif to come forward, please? We'll have Sharif's reading and then a few more questions.
Thank you. I've been the historian of the group, and I never expected to write the history of Cardiff Writers' Circle, but fate called me ahead to do it. The piece I've contributed to this collection is a historical piece. It's set in 1956, actually in the Suez Crisis. It's called Sand and Foam. The beginning paragraphs are deliberately very slow and very lyrical, so those are the couple I'll read, and then you'll have to guess the rest of the story yourself. Sometimes, at low tide, I find cockle pickers bent over in their waders, scrabbling in the wet sand. Sometimes, on sunny days, I see day trippers arrive. They hold picnics on the grassy banks, and their children build sandcastles and run along the shore, shrieking and laughing. But sometimes, like on this grey November afternoon, there's no one. I walk over the glistening grey-blue sand and admire the ornamentation stretching out before me. Reflections of clouds, sky, and moments of sun. It's as if I can walk to the horizon and beyond. Blake found infinity in a grain of sand. I glimpse it in this mad meeting of sand, sea, and sky. I walk, and I forget London and my wife and my work. I forget Eden and NASA. I forget Suez and Hungary. I forget everything. Just let it all dissolve in the swirling sea breezes and the shimmering grey. My head empties, my limbs freeze, my lungs fill, and something heals inside me. But I can't float away in this grey infinity. Two chains bind me to the earth, the time of the tide and the hour of sunset. As the blue of the sea turns a deeper blue-grey, I turn round, trudge back across the glistening sand, and I realise I'm no longer alone. There's a white dot on the quayside. Each step brings me closer, and new details emerge. A white square and a blue line, a canvas and a painter. What madman would paint this view today? A blue scarf flapping in the wind, an arm raised, then falling. A cap. My God, it's a woman. Not young, but it's hard to be sure. She's wrapped up like a trooper in an old khaki greatcoat. Thank you.
Sorry, if I could just point out, I neglected to say when I did my introductions, at our writers' gathering, Sharif wrote a one-act play specifically for it. And he, as it were, reenacted the first meeting of Cardiff Writers' Circle, and the star of the show, apart from Sharif, was of course young Nick here.
Nick with the flowing hair.
Yes. And the other thing was that Sharif was in his working life a university professor, and he applied those skills to a few boxes full of handwritten notes from meetings. And he produced, is it 30,000 word document? 22, sorry. And it was quite phenomenal what Sharif performed. So thank you very much, Sharif. And
thank you.
Sorry, Sarah.
That's okay. You said it much better than I did. But also, the play is in the back of the book, so if you're interested, you can find it and read it. And some of, not just Nick, but we've got other people here who performed on the night. So on the afternoon rather. So it was, it's lovely. You might have realised that we do like sharing our work. It's we've talked about the society and feeling comfortable in each other's company, but you also do like to give air to our own work and have it heard and have it unpicked a little bit, is what we do at our writers' circle. And it's really a growing experience. It really helps us review how we're approaching things. So I can't commend it highly enough. Reading your own work out and getting constructive and supportive feedback is extremely valuable. And I'm sure, well, I certainly feel my writing has come on leaps and bounds since being part of the circle. So I'm indebted to the circle. Thank you. Any comments from the floor?
Yeah, no one in the circle shouts that's rubbish to them.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
You've got to think it.
Stephen.
Yeah, hello. I wonder if I could ask Paul a bit more about the walking tour. I was unable to attend, although I did have a proxy who attended in my place. And it seemed to me, I mean, the reports I got were that it was incredibly successful, but it was also perhaps the most individual of the events, of all of the anniversary events that we did, or you did. And I was wondering whether there are any plans to repeat it, either using the same material and the same route, or altering the route using new material. I ask partly because I know of a number of people who are not members of any writing group, but would have liked to have attended that walk, but for various reasons weren't able to. So I just wondered whether, I realise, you know, it's a huge thing to organise, but because it was so successful and so individual, whether there's any chance of a repeat.
Well, thank you for that, Steve. The tour was very much enjoyed by everyone who went on it, observed it, and I don't know if I gave the feeling earlier, but A48 Theatre Company had dressed up for the occasions. It was a lot of historical and then a bit modern. There was Nisha's wedding, which was partly held in the Castle Arcade, and they read one of Nisha's pieces there, and there were people who were a pair of clockmakers in Caroline Street, and there was also somebody who was rather partial to kebabs and curry chips and so on that appeared there. Yeah, no idea, no, I never got his name. But the whole point of it was, as with other walking tours, you had a group of people that you took from spot to spot, and of course you can't cover a huge area of the city, and we had so many entries for it that when it was timed, it ended up being a number of hours long, so we had to trim it, but we have some really excellent works that we would like to put on again. But it benefited, I think, from having the actors of the A48 Theatre Company performing it. Some people will perform their own work well, but others aren't, should we say, ready for performing. And it just worked very well. A lot of people said, you must do more of these, but it's a lot to organise. Well, there was a thought of perhaps asking a company that does walking tours whether they might be interested, but of course that's another story because they would probably want to do it for cash. But it's something we're going to be considering, Steve, certainly, and we are putting up on our websites the actual stories that were written that didn't make it into the tour and the ones that did, and of course all the lovely shots that Natasha took and the videos from Matt. So hopefully we can. Perhaps we can talk about that in the not too distant future, because you want to do it when the weather's good, don't you, Sarah?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you. Can I ask Jane to come forward, please? another reading.
This is a little piece of flash fiction that was written after a visit to an interactive exhibition called Masterpiece. He worked feverishly. There was a mood at night which inspired him, and he was enraptured in the silence. Well before sunrise it was complete. His wild energy had been captured magnificently. Theo, his brother, arrived with bread and cheese, and he ate ravenously. The depth of the new work stopped speech. They walked in the early morning light, Theo still awed. The Starry Night had been recorded by Vincent for posterity.
Lovely. Can I ask Sarah? Sarah, are you ready to come down and do a reading?
Hello, hi. I just wanted to read a poem of mine, which is in here. So this is a book about Cardiff, and although I do have a connection with the city, the truth is I'm from the valleys and I live in the valleys. And this poem is about the River Taff, which actually flows down to Cardiff, so I thought it'd be a nice one to read. Okay, and I just apologise because I'm going to have to turn the page in a moment, and I hope it doesn't break the flow. Okay, it's called... Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Thanks. Okay, it's called A Witness. A goldfinch flits from the seeker's view, a split-second colour flash in a fragment of loaded conversation, the Crexon said. A slurring sway of swiggers stumble on the path pounded by runners with intent etched on their faces. The yew tree vaunts, dressed in emerald plumage, as the stoic riverbanks hosts sprite songbirds springing, billowing plastic bags lost. Mallards glide free from becoming takeaway meals. Herons hide in the camera obscura of poets' eyes, merging with the meandering motion, whose lungs are clear once more, the mills and mix washed from her flowing mind. Bound for the mouth to mother, she sweeps past walking leaves, mere dust blowing.
Can I ask a question? Probably for each of the panelists, really. I mean, it sounds there's been 12 months of all kinds of really exciting activity. And if you could just tell us, just one big lesson that you've learnt. Or Bannon, Martin, go first. What's the one big thing you've learnt over the course of this 12 months, or last 12 months, I should say? What would that thing be?
I think it's something that a lot of voluntary groups encounter when they try to do things, is that everything takes 20 times longer than you originally plan. But seriously, I think one of the lessons we've learned is really how valuable it is for different groups, with different origins, not necessarily writing groups, but other groups as well, how valuable it is to get together and work on things as a cross-fertilization of experiences and ideas and influences. And I think it's been a really useful exercise, and I hope it continues in some form or other in the future.
I haven't really been involved very much in the 75th anniversary celebrations, although I have learned that there is a lot of work goes on in the background for these things. If I haven't learnt anything in the last year writing-wise, it is that perseverance pays off.
Absolutely. The thing I've learnt is that we all feel, certainly I feel, an amateur writer just sort of finding my feet. But actually we all offer so much, and when you get together we can produce some really interesting stuff. So I think working together is very much more rewarding than being on your own in a garret.
I suppose as a writer, I've learned to write from vastly different perspectives than what I'm used to, and it's very much helped my writing, trying something new in terms of age, gender, anything. In terms of running a group, I mean, COVID was very, very difficult to recover from. And I think what people really wanted wasn't, they wanted the practical skills, yes, but they needed more the community of people who wanted to go to something. So very balancing the social element with skills and with workshops and with readings was so important. And having maybe more social events than workshops, it made all the difference, really.
Yeah, I think, I mean, as someone who also wasn't necessarily involved in doing any of the planning, although everyone here works so hard, I feel like the last year has taught me so much about community and also collaboration, what it means to kind of move out of that like lone writing space, especially after the pandemic, and come together and learn from each other. So that chance to be able to collaborate and hear new ideas and see all the fantastic things that the other groups are doing has just been wonderful.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, okay. So we have 2 more people who would like to read. Saoirse, can I call you forward, please?
I'm not going to do an intro because we're short on time, but since I've used it as a bookmark, come grab a... Oh yes, excellent. Come grab a business card and talk to me about workshops and poems and so forth. I'm delighted to have 2 short poems in this collection, so I will read both without further ado because we have 5 minutes each, as warned. This is called Homophoniety. Talking on the phone. They give us a buzz known lifelong until a different sing-song at the other end can't comprehend yours. But in the then, the here, the when, lilts will always bend to mend gaps in understanding. It's a human thing. To story, tell how are ya? Well, across linguistic lines, these accented attempts are minds of humanity pure, where your words stumble to a spark between 2 new friends. Like trees to thrive, we bend in a breeze of speech. But hold fast against the reach of homophoniety. It doesn't sound like you or me, but a machine-measured, stilted Alexa lexicography. A red galottle stops you getting through the questions on the phone, and kids don't talk like mum or dad, but parrot Google home. It's a concrete voice. Its tongue won't bend, and its tone won't reach or sway. There's no chance to say in different ways, to bridge the gaps, explore or play. In homophonic monotones, there are no nonsense poems, no chance to roam with spontaneity. And make up the words you want to say, like homophoniety. Thank you. And this second one is the one that lets me put award-winning poet in my bio because it came first in the Cardiff Writers' Circle competition last year. This is called Heart Buzz. A sidestep, a wide step, a keep your distance stance. A choreography of change in our cautious daily dance. It feels a step too far from where we are at home, when no easy closeness keeps us grounded through this storm. But as the unknown swarms, a warm little buzz, a pollen-covered fuzz catches my ear and eye, and looking to my left I see, nose in nectar nestled, a bustling bumblebee. No world-weary worry weighs down these busy wings, as this bee buzzing sings a song of honey sweetness. And with the sound of her song, I'm no longer in a virus-ridden, hunger-bitten news cycle circus world, but in this moment that unfurled from the pollen-heavy petals of a flower. In this bumble industry there is a stillness, as this storm spreads relentless outside the fleeting floral calm that reassures. One glance left, and I'm reminded that the world is turning, deftly twirling in the dance it always has. And our choreography of change will change again to match new rhythms or refrains. And when it does, I'll hear the echo of a little buzz and know the heart beats on the same. Thank you very much.
you're enjoying these readings, I certainly am. It's wonderful. Can I, so you've got one more person to read, so can I indulge you, or can I be indulged and ask Ian to come forward, and then we can finish off with any final comments. Now remember, Ian, 5 minutes.
Last and least for a good reason. Seriously. Okay, this is called Unnecessary Necessary. An unnecessary, necessary slab of torments and comforts make me feel guilty for the time I spend with her. Should I be feeling this way, I ask. Yes, she says. She knows the answer to everything. Being smart, I suppose she would. Black and bruised, cracked and hacked, indented in my life, hands and jeans. I feel lost without her, shackled yet free to leave whenever I want. How did I ever manage without her, especially in my teens? The keeper of all my memories and witness to private chat. There used to be a silence between us, but now she can talk back. Just to me, I hope, although I hear spies can listen in. As long as it's not my mother, then I don't really care, I think. A friend and foe, an enemy of my time and tunnel of escape. The demon who trolls through my input and shows me lands far and warm. She knows it's wet and cold outside. She's seductive and clever and always on my side. She's a part of my body now, my hand, face and ears. A bit haggard and aged, a phone battling to keep its head high. Her time has come and gone, been replaced and outsmarted. A new one I should buy. My relationship is one that if for one moment I think I've lost her forever, I panic and get sad. That's how much she means to me. Yet I loathe her for making me feel so needy and bad. I dropped her once and spread the already webbed, cracked screen. On my laptop I searched for new models. I'm not so stupid as to use my phone. She would break her motherboard heart and would purposely wipe her memory of me and that of her own. She could live without me, but not me without her. We get along fine, and if I did not have one, I would be frowned upon by society. I would end up having just real friends and not know the time or day. I would book 0-rated hotels for and train tickets and pay too much for what I would pay. I'd miss my birthday and that of others. I would not know how many times I'm being liked. I would not know if I should be building a nuclear fallout shelter. Okay, yes, I admit it. I love my phone, and most importantly, I can use it to see if I've spinach on my teeth or a boogie on my nose.
Charming way to end. Thank you so much. I think we're going to wrap things up now because we need to be mingling and saying hello to each other quickly. So can I say thank you to my panellists, to Martin, to Jen, to Kat and to Christina, and thanks to Paul for all your contributions, and thanks to all our readers, and thank you very much for coming. It's been a lovely evening as far as I'm concerned, so thank you very much.